So how do you make a great decision when you don't have all the facts? I mean, it's a question we face literally every single day, right? From our jobs to our personal lives. Well, today we're diving into a really cool book by former pro poker player Annie Duke called Thinking in Bets. It's all about finding a better way to navigate this world that's just full of uncertainty. Let's get into it.
To really get the core idea, we've got to go back to one of the most jaw-dropping moments in sports history, the final seconds of Super Bowl XL9. Picture this. The Seattle Seahawks are on the 1-yard line. They're about to win the whole thing. All they have to do is score.
With the championship hanging in the balance, Coach Pete Carroll calls for a pass play. And it's intercepted. Game over. The next day, the headlines were just brutal. Pretty much everyone calling it the worst play call in the history of football. It seemed like a total open and shut case of a horrible decision. But what if I told you that separating the decision itself from the outcome is one of the most powerful skills you can ever learn? That's the big question Annie Duke wants us to ask. Was the decision itself actually bad, or did we all just hate the result?
And this brings us to a massive, massive bug in our mental software. It's a trap we all fall into constantly, and we usually don't even realize it. It has a name, resulting. Here's how it works, and it's super simple. We see a good outcome, and we think, wow, that was a great decision. We see a bad outcome, like, say, a Super Bowl interception, and we automatically assume that was a terrible decision. But of course, real life is way, way messier than that.
And this, my friends, is where the story gets really interesting. See, when Pete Carroll made that call, the actual data showed that the probability of an interception from the 1-yard line was incredibly low. In fact, if you look at the 15 seasons before that game, the interception rate in that exact situation was only about 2%. He was making a bet with a 98% chance of not throwing an interception. All of a sudden, a decision that looked totally insane was actually a calculated risk that just happened to land on the wrong side of the odds.
And this perfectly illustrates the book's central metaphor. We love to treat life like it's a game of chess. You know, perfect information, all the pieces are on the board, and the best player always wins. But Duke argues that life is so much more like poker. It's a game of incomplete information, hidden cards, and a massive dose of luck.
You know, the legendary mathematician John von Neumann, the guy who basically invented game theory, he actually based it on poker, not chess, for this very reason. He knew our most important decisions aren't these neat little calculations. They are messy bets we make in the face of uncertainty.
So why do we fall for this resulting trap so easily? Well, it turns out our brains come with some, let's call them pre-installed bugs that make thinking objectively really, really difficult.
Okay, get ready for this, because some research from psychologist Daniel Gilbert is kind of shocking. You'd probably think that we hear something, we process it, and then we decide if it's true. Nope, it's actually backward. Our brains are built to believe first and ask questions later. Believing is automatic. Skepticism, that takes real effort.
And oh, it gets worse. We all suffer from something called motivated reasoning. This is our tendency to basically twist any new facts to fit our existing worldview. We're not like impartial judges searching for truth. We're more like lawyers arguing for a case we've already decided we want to win.
And this isn't just some abstract theory. It's been proven in classic studies. For instance, psychologists showed students from Princeton and Dartmouth a film of a super rough football game between their two schools. The result? You would have thought they were watching two completely different games. The Princeton students saw the Dartmouth players commit twice as many fouls. The Dartmouth students saw both teams being equally aggressive. They literally saw what they wanted to see.
And to top it all off, there's the self-serving bias. I think we all know this one. When things go our way, it's because we're brilliant, right? But when they go badly, that was just bad luck or the economy or somebody else's fault. This bias makes it almost impossible to learn from our own experiences in an honest way.
Okay, so our brains are buggy, we judge decisions by their outcomes, and we can't really see the world clearly. It sounds pretty bleak, doesn't it? But this is where Annie Duke offers a really powerful solution. It's a complete shift in our mental framework.
The whole goal of thinking in bets isn't to be right all the time. I mean, that's just impossible. The goal is to get closer to the truth, to become more accurately calibrated with reality over time. It's all about focusing on the quality of your decision-making process, not just the random outcome of any one event.
So what this really means is changing the question you ask yourself after a decision. You stop asking that simple, ego-driven question, was I right? And you start asking a much more productive one. Given what I knew at the time, What were the probabilities of the different outcomes?
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually do it? Well, Duke provides some incredibly practical tools to help us fight our own biases and start thinking more like a seasoned poker player. First off, you can't do it alone. You need what she calls a truth-seeking pod. This is just a small group of people you trust whose explicit goal is not to make you feel good, but to help you see the world more clearly and hold you accountable for how you think. A good pod runs on a set of principles that go by the acronym KUDOS. It stands for communism, which means all data is shared openly with the group. Universalism, where you judge the idea on its merits, not by who said it. Disinterestedness, to guard against personal biases and conflicts of interest. And finally, organized skepticism, which means disagreement isn't just okay, it's actually encouraged.
The second tool is really cool. It's called mental time travel. So often, our decisions get totally hijacked by our emotions in the moment. This technique helps you step outside that emotional whirlwind by bringing in your past and future self for a consultation.
One of the most powerful forms of this is the pre-mortem. Instead of just sitting around visualizing success, you do the exact opposite. Imagine your project has already failed, completely and spectacularly. Now, work backward and brainstorm all the reasons why it failed. This kind of negative visualization is an incredibly effective way to spot the weaknesses in your plan before they actually happen. So at the end of the day, adopting this way of thinking isn't just about learning a new technique or a productivity hack. It's about making a fundamental choice about how you want to engage with the world.
Duke frames this with that famous analogy from The Matrix. You can take the blue pill. You can keep believing the comfortable stories your brain tells you where you're always the hero, your successes are all because of your skill, and your failures are just bad luck. Or you can take the red pill and commit to seeing the uncomfortable, messy, probabilistic truth of the world as it really is.
Now, taking the red pill isn't easy. It takes a lot of intellectual honesty, a ton of humility, and the courage to admit when you're wrong. But it also offers something invaluable, a clearer view of reality, and over time, a much better shot at making decisions that actually get you where you want to go. So, which do you choose?